Names carry immense weight and significance in the world of politics. They're carefully chosen to project an image. This image is often one of legitimacy and popular support. The name People's Republic of China is a powerful example of this practice. It suggests a nation governed by its citizens, for its citizens. It also implies a republican system where power is not concentrated in a single ruler. However, a closer examination reveals a stark contrast between this name and the political reality within the country's borders. This essay will explore the layers of meaning and perhaps misdirection embedded in this carefully constructed title. The term peoples immediately evokes a sense of popular sovereignty. It suggests that the citizens of China are the ultimate source of authority. It paints a picture of a government that is responsive to the will of the masses. This idea is central to many democratic ideologies around the globe. It implies that the government acts in the best interests of its populace. It also suggests that the people have a direct role in shaping their own governance. Yet, the mechanisms for such popular participation in China are severely limited, raising questions about this claim. Similarly, the word republic carries specific connotations. It typically describes a state where supreme power is held by the people and their elected representatives. It implies a system with a president rather than a monarch. A republic usually features checks and balances to prevent the abuse of power. It is fundamentally different from an autocratic or monarchical system. The inclusion of republic in China's official name aims to align it with modern forms of governance. It seeks to present China as a state governed by laws and institutions, not by arbitrary rule. This essay will delve into the disparity between the PRC's name and its actual governing practices. We will examine how the Chinese Communist Party maintains its grip on power. We will explore the absence of genuine democratic representation. We will also look at the state's extensive use of surveillance and propaganda. By comparing China's system to historical imperial regimes, we can gain a clearer understanding. The goal is to unpack the layers of deception that may lie within this globally recognized name, revealing a more complex reality. The assertion that China is a people's republic suggests that the citizenry holds the ultimate authority. This implies that the government is an instrument of the collective will. However, the political landscape in China tells a different story. There is a significant absence of genuine popular sovereignty. Citizens lack the fundamental ability to choose their top national leaders through free and fair elections. The Chinese Communist Party is not chosen by the people in a competitive electoral process. Instead, the CCP appoints itself as the ruling authority, a system that starkly contrasts with the ideal of a government of the people by the people. Furthermore, the avenues for citizens to express dissent or opposition are severely restricted. China lacks a free press that can independently investigate and report on government actions. An independent judiciary, crucial for upholding citizens' rights against state power, does not exist in a meaningful way. Opposition parties, a hallmark of multi-party democracies, are not permitted to operate. Individuals who dare to publicly protest, act as whistleblowers, or offer criticism of the government often face harsh consequences. This includes imprisonment or enforced silence, as seen in numerous cases involving human rights activists, lawyers, and ordinary citizens who speak out. The situation in Hong Kong provides a contemporary example of this suppression. After 2020, the media landscape in the city changed dramatically. The critical newspaper, known for its anti-establishment stance, was forced to close in 2021. The remaining media outlets increasingly emphasize themes of patriotism and national unity. This shift aligns with the CCP's principle of patriots administering Hong Kong. This effectively diminishes the space for dissenting voices and critical perspectives that are vital for a government to truly represent its people. The voices of the people are systematically managed and often silenced. Therefore, the people's component of the PRC's name appears to be more aspirational or propagandistic than descriptive. While the government claims to serve the people, the lack of mechanisms for accountability and genuine participation undermines this claim. The power structure ensures that the CCP, rather than the populace, remains the ultimate arbiter of the nation's direction. This fundamental disconnect between the name and the reality of governance raises serious questions about the legitimacy conveyed by the term peoples. It suggests a system where the party defines the people's interests rather than the people defining their own. The term republic traditionally signifies a form of government where citizens elect representatives. These representatives are meant to govern on behalf of the people. A republic typically operates under a constitution that limits governmental power. It often includes a separation of powers to prevent any single entity from becoming too dominant. However, China operates as a one-party state. The Chinese Communist Party holds a monopoly on political power. This structure fundamentally contradicts the core principles of a republic as understood in most democratic contexts. The public does not have a direct say in national leadership or the formulation of national laws. While local-level elections do occur in some parts of China, their democratic significance is questionable. Candidates for these local positions typically require approval from the CCP. This pre-selection process ensures that individuals who might challenge the party's authority are unlikely to gain office. Such controlled elections do not provide a genuine avenue for popular representation or political competition. They serve more as a facade of democratic participation than a true exercise of republican principles. The system is designed to reinforce the CCP's control from the grassroots to the highest echelons of power rather than to empower the citizenry. A critical development that further undermines the republic label was the abolition of presidential term limits in 2018. This constitutional change effectively allows the current leader Xi Jinping to rule indefinitely. This move is a significant departure from the Republican ideal of limited terms for leaders, which helps prevent the concentration of power and potential for tyranny. The absence of a clear successor to Xi Jinping also introduces uncertainty. It suggests a consolidation of personal power that is more characteristic of an autocracy than a republic governed by its citizens through established, predictable processes. In essence, the republic in China's name signifies a system of centralized control rather than popular representation. The state apparatus is extensive and powerful, but it is ultimately subservient to the CCP. The party dictates policy, controls personnel appointments, and ensures ideological conformity. This reality is far removed from the concept of a republic where diverse voices contribute to governance and where power is subject to meaningful checks and balances. The term republic in this context seems to be used to lend an air of modern legitimacy while masking a deeply entrenched, centralized imperial structure. It is a label that does not accurately reflect the distribution or exercise of power. The name People's Republic of China can be understood as a significant element of political theater. It functions as a carefully constructed facade designed to project an image of popular legitimacy and modern governance. This is a common tactic employed by modern totalitarian regimes. Such regimes often adopt names and symbols associated with democracy and popular sovereignty to mask their true nature. The goal is to garner domestic acquiescence and international acceptance. By calling itself a People's Republic, the CCP attempts to create an illusion that its rule is based on the consent of the governed. This use of nomenclature is part of a broader propaganda apparatus Other totalitarian states have used similar naming conventions. For instance, North Korea officially calls itself the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Syria is known as the Syrian Arab Republic. These names stand in stark contrast to the realities of highly centralized, often repressive, rule in those countries. The adoption of such titles is a strategic move. It aims to disarm criticism by co-opting the language of democracy. It is a way of claiming legitimacy on the international stage, even when domestic practices entirely contradict the proclaimed ideals. Within China, the CCP reinforces its authority and maintains loyalty through various means, which are presented as serving the people. Continuous anti-corruption campaigns, for example, are framed as efforts to purify the party and better serve the populace. However, these campaigns also serve a crucial political purpose for the leadership. They are often used to eliminate political rivals and consolidate power under the current leader Xi Jinping. Ideological drives promoting concepts like Xi Jinping thought are presented as unifying the nation. In reality, they function to ensure conformity and suppress alternative viewpoints, further cementing the party's control. The pervasive nature of this political theater extends to all aspects of public life. Media narratives are carefully managed to emphasize patriotism and national unity, particularly in sensitive regions like Hong Kong. Critical discourse is often suppressed or reframed. The people's aspect of the name is used to justify extensive surveillance and censorship. These measures are presented as necessary for maintaining social harmony and protecting the collective interest. However, they primarily serve to monitor and control the population, ensuring that any challenge to the CCP's authority is swiftly identified and neutralized. The name therefore becomes a tool for legitimizing totalitarian practices. Imperial Shadow's centralized rule Reborn. The governance model of the People's Republic of China, despite its modern name, exhibits striking continuities with China's long imperial past. You see, a key feature of imperial China was highly centralized autocratic rule. Emperors held supreme power, often justified by the mandate of heaven, a concept that legitimized their reign as divinely sanctioned. The Chinese Communist Party in many ways functions as a new dynasty. Xi Jinping's rule, increasingly characterized by the demand for total loyalty and the treatment of criticism as a form of treason, mirrors the absolute authority expected by emperors of old. His consolidation of power, especially after abolishing presidential term limits, further reinforces this image, This centralized control is not merely a matter of political structure, it extends to ideological conformity. Just as imperial courts enforced Confucian orthodoxy as the state ideology, the CCP mandates adherence to party ideology. Xi Jinping thought is increasingly embedded in education, media, and even guidance for parenting. It's treated almost as a sacred text, deviation from which is not tolerated. This insistence on ideological uniformity is a hallmark of systems where power is concentrated at the top. It aims to eliminate dissent and ensure that the population internalizes the values and goals set forth by the ruling elite, much like imperial subjects were expected to adhere to the emperor's decrees. The methods of maintaining control also show a blend of old and new. Imperial China relied on a network of officials and at times spies to monitor the populace and enforce the emperor's will. Today, these methods have been updated with 21st century technology. The state employs sophisticated AI-driven facial recognition systems and a burgeoning social credit system. These digital tools allow for unprecedented levels of surveillance and social engineering. The traditional Confucian concept of a harmonious society, which emphasized social order and conformity, is reinterpreted. It now justifies a state of mandatory conformity, enforced by the most advanced digital means available. Xi Jinping has also taken firm control over the military and state security agencies. This is achieved through purges disguised as anti-corruption measures and through constant demands for loyalty. This mirrors how emperors historically sought to control the armed forces to prevent coups and maintain their grip on power. The party's supremacy over all institutions, including the military, the People's Liberation Army, which is in fact the army of the party, ensures that the centralized authority remains unchallenged. The Republic in the name belies this deep-rooted pattern of centralized, almost imperial command that has characterized Chinese governance for centuries, albeit now under a communist banner. The legacy of assimilation, cultural homogenization in modern China. Another striking parallel between Imperial China and the modern People's Republic of China lies in the approach to diverse cultures within its claimed territories. Historically, Chinese empires often pursued policies of Sinicization. This involved the gradual and sometimes forced assimilation of non-Han Chinese peoples into the dominant Han culture. Conquered regions and distinct ethnic groups were encouraged or compelled to adopt Chinese language, customs, and administrative systems. This was seen as a way to consolidate imperial control, ensure stability, and create a more homogeneous cultural landscape across the vast empire. Such policies aimed to absorb and neutralize potential sources of regional identity that could challenge central authority. The CCP's contemporary policies in regions like Xinjiang, Tibet, Inner Mongolia, and even Hong Kong echo these historical practices of cultural assimilation. Under the banner of promoting national unity and ethnic harmony, the state has implemented measures that critics argue are aimed at erasing distinct local identities. In Xinjiang, for example, reports of mass detentions of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in re-education camps are widespread. These camps are allegedly designed to instill loyalty to the CCP and supplant Uyghur language, religion, and cultural practices with those sanctioned by the state. This approach mirrors the imperial drive to culturally unify diverse populations under a central ideology. Similarly, in Tibet, the promotion of Mandarin Chinese in schools and public life often comes at the expense of the Tibetan language and Buddhist traditions. Monasteries face increased scrutiny and control, and expressions of Tibetan cultural nationalism are suppressed. In Inner Mongolia, there have been protests against policies reducing the use of the Mongolian language in education. These actions are perceived by many as attempts to dilute local cultural heritage and integrate these regions more tightly into a Han-dominated national identity. The emphasis is consistently on a singular, unified Chinese identity, defined and enforced by the central government, much like imperial courts promoted a singular imperial culture. Even in Hong Kong, which was promised a high degree of autonomy under the one country, two systems framework, there are growing concerns about the erosion of its unique identity. The imposition of the national security law and changes in the education system are seen as efforts to instill greater patriotism towards mainland China. This often involves downplaying local history and promoting a narrative that aligns with the CCP's vision. Critical media outlets that championed Hong Kong's distinct character have been shut down. This systematic approach to cultural and political homogenization reflects a long-standing imperial tradition of absorbing and transforming peripheral territories to secure the power of the center. Historical echoes, totalitarian systems and their facades. The practice of using misleadingly democratic or popular names is not unique to the People's Republic of China. Throughout history, various totalitarian regimes have employed similar tactics to project an image of legitimacy and mask their autocratic nature. The Soviet Union, for instance, was officially the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The term Soviet originally referred to workers' councils, implying grassroots democracy. However, the USSR evolved into a highly centralized one-party state where the Communist Party held absolute power and genuine popular participation was non-existent. The name served as a rhetorical tool both domestically and internationally. Comparisons have also been drawn, albeit cautiously, with other 20th century totalitarian states. For example, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler maintained the facade of the Weimar Republic's constitution for a time, even while systematically dismantling its democratic institutions. The Nazi Party, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, used socialist and workers in its name to appeal to certain segments of the population, despite its ideology being fundamentally opposed to genuine socialism or workers' control. The regime relied heavily on state propaganda, a cult of personality around Hitler, and militarized nationalism, elements that some observers note in contemporary China under the CCP. The key similarity lies in the disconnect between the proclaimed ideals embedded in the name and the reality of governance. These regimes often feature a single dominant party that tolerates no opposition. They utilize extensive propaganda networks to shape public opinion and ensure ideological conformity. A cult of personality around the leader is frequently cultivated to centralize power and create an image of an indispensable figure guiding the nation. Furthermore, a strong emphasis on nationalism, often with militaristic undertones, is used to unify the populace behind the state's objectives and to justify repressive measures against perceived internal and external enemies. The purpose of such naming conventions and associated propaganda is multifaceted. It aims to secure domestic compliance by presenting the regime as legitimate and representative of the people's will internationally. It seeks to gain recognition and avoid condemnation by using the language of accepted political norms. By studying these historical parallels, we can better understand the strategies employed by totalitarian systems to maintain power. The People's Republic of China, in this context, can be seen as employing a time-tested strategy, adopting the nomenclature of popular rule while practicing a highly centralized, party-dominated form of governance. The architecture of control, surveillance and propaganda. The Chinese Communist Party maintains its formidable control over the vast population of China through a sophisticated and pervasive architecture of surveillance and propaganda. These two pillars work in tandem to ensure ideological conformity and preempt any significant challenge to the party's authority. The people's aspect of the nation's name belies the reality that the people are, in fact, extensively monitored by the state. This surveillance is not merely a passive observation, but an active tool for social management and political repression. It creates an environment where citizens are constantly aware that their actions and words are being watched. Modern technology has amplified the state's surveillance capabilities to an unprecedented degree. China is a world leader in the development and deployment of AI-driven facial recognition systems, which are integrated into a vast network of CCTV cameras across the country. This digital infrastructure allows authorities to track individuals' movements and activities in real time. Furthermore, the burgeoning social credit system aims to rate citizens based on their behavior, from financial transactions to online speech. This system can reward conformity and penalize dissent, effectively creating a digital panopticon where self-censorship becomes a norm for many. Alongside this technological surveillance, the CCP deploys a comprehensive propaganda apparatus. This system works tirelessly to shape public perception and reinforce the party's narrative. State-controlled media, including television, radio, newspapers, and increasingly online platforms, disseminate official viewpoints and promote positive energy. Xi Jinping thought is relentlessly promoted in all spheres of life, from schools to workplaces. Grand parades, flag ceremonies, nationalistic films, and even AI-generated patriotic content are employed to legitimize the party's absolute rule. These spectacles are reminiscent of imperial court rituals designed to project power and divine authority. The goal of this combined system of surveillance and propaganda is to create what the party terms a harmonious society. However, this harmony is often achieved through the suppression of dissenting voices and the enforcement of conformity. Criticism of the party or its policies is swiftly censored online, and individuals who persist in expressing unwelcome views can face serious repercussions. The propaganda aims to convince the populace that the CCP's leadership is indispensable for China's stability and prosperity. This carefully managed information environment, coupled with the chilling effect of mass surveillance, ensures that the party's control remains largely unchallenged, making the people's label a stark irony. Unmasking the reality behind People's Republic of China. The name People's Republic of China is a carefully crafted label. It is designed to project an image of popular sovereignty and modern republican governance. However, as this essay has explored, the reality of China's political system diverges significantly from the connotations of its name. The people's component is undermined by the lack of genuine democratic mechanisms. Citizens cannot freely choose their leaders or form independent political organizations. The Chinese Communist Party maintains a monopoly on power, making decisions for the people rather than with the people. This disconnect between rhetoric and reality is a fundamental characteristic of the PRC's political landscape. Similarly, the term republic is misleading in the context of China's one-party rule. A republic, by definition, implies representative government and checks on executive power. In China, the CCP's dominance over all state institutions, the abolition of presidential term limits, and the suppression of political opposition contradict these republican ideals. The system is characterized by centralized authority, echoing historical imperial traditions more than modern democratic principles. The name, therefore, serves more as a veneer of legitimacy than an accurate description of the political structure. It is a facade that masks a totalitarian system that weaves the tradition of centralized imperial rule into a Leninist party state. The PRC's name functions as an integral part of its political theater. It is a tool of propaganda aimed at securing domestic obedience and international acceptance. This tactic is not new. Many totalitarian regimes in modern times have adopted similar nomenclature to legitimize their rule. By comparing the CCP's methods to these historical precedents, and by examining the continuation of imperial traditions such as centralized control and cultural assimilation, we gain a clearer understanding. The state's extensive use of surveillance and propaganda further solidifies its control, creating an environment where the people's will is defined and managed by the party. Ultimately, the People's Republic of China is a title that obscures more than it reveals. It represents a complex interplay of historical legacies, Leninist party-state structures, and advanced digital totalitarianism. While the country has achieved remarkable economic progress, its political system remains firmly under the control of the CCP. Understanding the disparity between the name and the reality is crucial for engaging with China effectively. It allows for a more nuanced appreciation of the forces that shape its domestic policies and its role on the global stage. The label is powerful, but the underlying governance model tells a far more intricate and sobering story.